Hello and welcome to my video on the G1000 PFD. So, first off, we have the master switch right over here. So this is like your standard master switch, normally big and red, right? This is a Cirrus setup. On the Cirrus, it shows up just right around here on these little kind of screens. On this setup right here, we have the PFD on the left, the MFD on the right, and then the control center right down here in like a center console kind of area. So, zooming back into this, we also have the alternator right here, as well as avionics switch right over here. So we got master, and they all kind of show in the categories, right? So master, exterior lights, heat, ice protect, pump. So pump backup. So for like, obviously we have nav, strobe, landing, ice, pitot heat over here. So these are just all kind of like the basic controls down here. Over here, we have inset. You hit inset, you can have a couple things that you can inset, so you can do this, right? All the different nav kinds. You can put traffic in. I don't have any traffic around. Topographical, terrain, next RAS, you can have your weather updating, storm scope. And so you can have all these different things that you can pop up into this little like indent right here. Inset, sorry. When you hit PFD, there's actually a lot of controls on here. This is one of my favorites, wind. So you can pop it over, option 1, option 2, option 3. Option 3 will show the wind speed and also the track. So it's really helpful if you want to know what the crosswind is, especially if you're entering a pattern or say like something like that. It's pretty helpful to know and to have all those different things. You can also have it off if you don't want that in there. When you hit back, this is another cool thing. If you hit DME, right? So right now I have currently tuned into the Richmond VOR, which is right over here. You can see right over there, I have it tuned into Richmond. When you hit DME, it pops up with the DME and the nautical miles from the VOR station. When you hit bearing, this is really helpful for instrument approaches. It will show your bearing to the GPS. So if I follow this, I will go to the GPS. There's also, you can do multiple bearings. I don't have anything on this one, so I like to just keep it off, and it keeps it nice and clean. Over here, altitude, altimeter unit, so I can either have it in inches or I can have it in hectopascals. I like to keep it in inches, obviously, because that's kind of what we use back here in America, but that's something that's interesting. You can also do meters, and it will show the meters of the altitude. Back over here, you can do standard barometer. That'll just pop it to standard whenever you need that kind of thing. Over here, we got transponder, so you can do standby, on, alt, right, ground, VFR. You can type in your code here, hit ident, and back. So this is how you get to the transponder. You go to PFD, right? Oh, sorry, no. You just go to the main screen, hit transponder, and put that in there. On the CDI, this is pretty important, especially if you're doing instrument approaches. The CDI, you'll want to go through and you just have the VOR, right? You can switch it back over to the VOR2, and you can switch it back over to your GPS. So, you know what they say, like if you don't flip it over, that's a failed approach right there. So whenever you tune to something, you make sure you ident it and then pop it in with the CDI. Over here, again, we have ident. That'll just ident your transponder like it just popped up right there. See, it went from ground to ident. And then over here we have the timer. You hit this, you can click enter and start it on there, right? Start, stop, reset. All the different things. You have your glide, VR, VY, and that's really helpful, and all that kind of stuff. I don't use it as much, but it's definitely something that's helpful to know that it's there. Nearest will show all the nearest airports. You can go pop down over here with this little knob right over here. You can scroll through all the recent airports, and that brings me right over to this section: direct, enter, procedure, flight plan, right? This is pretty standard. You guys all pretty much know what this is from your the G430s and stuff like that, all the different GPSs. But say if I wanted to go direct to Richmond, which I'm not at, I can hit direct, enter, enter, and it'll pop right in, pop over on my HSI, it'll pop over on here, and it'll also pop over on my MFD, but we'll get to that later. So this G1000 system kind of has all the different things of a six-pack in one area. So over here, right, we have our altimeter. We got our vertical speed indicator right over here. It'll show once we start climbing that goes up, and when it goes down, it'll go down. Over here, sorry, this is airspeed, my bad. This is altimeter, this is airspeed. It'll go up, like I said, it'll show true airspeed down here. It'll also show ground speed once we get moving. Ground speed is normally shown near the top of the MFD. It's right over here. Altimeter, we've got our little altimeter bug, which is new. You can't really have on the steam panel. Heading bug. We also have a heading bug on here. That is shown over on the control panel down here. So this is where the standard heading bug would be shown for that. And you can see, you can move that around, click it, it pops right back into where you are. Same thing with the altitude selector. There's a little knob right over here in this area. You move this knob and you'll move the altitude. This kind of entire control panel is pretty easy to find out. This is the autopilot right here, obviously. Don't normally need to mess with that too much, but you got your heading bug. You can control your heading bug with this, your altitude selector. I like to use the autopilot buttons in order to control those devices, just because it's a little easier, especially you don't have to move over, you might hit something and mess up your flight plan, whereas here they're pretty big knobs and they're pretty hard to mess up. Flight plan. So if you hit flight plan, you can enter in a flight plan. So say again, if I wanted to go to Richmond, right? I can go over here to my keyboard, KRIC. Whoops. All right, I can actually just do nearest, can't I? I can. And I can just go nearest, enter, enter, and just pop it right in there. Activate, yes. And so I already have it in there, so it's not really going to change anything. Next up, procedure. So if I was going to select an approach into Richmond, you just hit the procedure button, you scroll down to what you want, say RNAV 34. You can do vectors, you can just go right to on a Richmond like and then you just hit vectors, minimums off obviously for now, because we're not looking at any plates right now, so, and then just activate. Yes, activate approach. And it'll pop up with everything we need to know, all our distances. Our missed approach, so we'll go runway 34 right, 700 feet, coat and hold is our missed approach there. So you can also just hit clear on the flight plan, and it should pretty much clear it out. Next up, we got range. So this doesn't really show much except over on this side, where you can zoom out, pretty much see everything around you, all the airspace. The barometer, just obviously as it says, it'll just go through and push all these different things. So, right, I move it, it goes down. Push that knob back up, it goes back up. COM. So this is a little COM selector. We hit it right here, it slips to COM 1, hit it right there, switches back to COM 2. You can also flip it over, say if you had an emergency COM in there, you just flip it right back in over there. But yep, that's pretty much it. You push it, move it, click, and that's it. And that's pretty much the capabilities of the PFD. But the MFD has quite a bit more.